Hello, my name is Julio with Quickbooks Bookkeeping, and I help Shopify merchants ease the stress and complexities of e-commerce bookkeeping. In this video, I'll cover undeposited funds. This topic tends to confuse some people, so I will go over what undeposited funds is, why we use them, some common mistakes that can be made, and the proper workflow. I'll also give a demonstration of how to use them as well as how not to use undeposited funds. First, what is undeposited funds? Undeposited funds is a temporary account that holds payments you plan to deposit later. This allows you to easily combine several payments into a single deposit. Think of this as a check or cash that you received and put in your pocket, meaning you received the payment but have not yet deposited the check into your bank account. It's almost like a step in between the money getting into your bank account. Even though it can be a little confusing and seem tedious, there are reasons why we use undeposited funds. Why do we first have to put the payments into the undeposited funds account and then record the deposit into the bank account? This account is useful for businesses that receive multiple payments in a single day but make deposits at different times. This is important especially for e-commerce bookkeeping, which is what I specialize in, because e-commerce businesses deal with high volume transactions. Using undeposited funds allows us to track and manage all transactions, and reconciling them to the bank account becomes smoother. With undeposited funds, we can ensure that all payments received from customers are accurately recorded into QuickBooks. This is particularly important for e-commerce businesses, which often receive large volume of small transactions. Using undeposited funds also helps us with efficiency. Instead of having to manually record each transaction separately, we can group multiple payments together and deposit them in a single transaction. This can save time and make the bookkeeping process more efficient. Using undeposited funds also makes it easier to reconcile your accounting records with your bank statements. You can easily compare the amount of money in your undeposited funds account with the amount of money that has been deposited into your bank account and identify any discrepancies that need to be resolved. Using undeposited funds can help catch any discrepancies on our books and allows us to have accurate statements, which is crucial for cash flow management. Even though using undeposited funds can be very helpful for the bookkeeping workflow, there are some potential mistakes that can be made if not properly used. Depositing payments individually can make the bank reconciliation much harder and strenuous to reconcile. It's also important to make sure payments are deposited into the correct undeposited funds account and bank account. If we don't, it can of course lead to inaccurate records and can cause issues with cash flow management. Failure to reconcile. By not reconciling undeposited funds regularly, we can miss mistakes, cause errors, and under or overstate income. Recording payments as deposited before they are actually deposited. This can again cause mistakes and we end up with misleading financials. Now let's talk about the proper workflow for undeposited funds. The proper workflow to use undeposited funds would be to first create or record a sales receipt. We then receive the payment, post the payment to undeposited funds, and finally we make the bank deposit. The way it works is when we create an invoice, we debit accounts receivable and credit income. When the payment is received, we debit undeposited funds and credit accounts receivable. And when we make the bank deposit, we debit the bank account and credit undeposited funds. To understand the workflow of undeposited funds, we'll first take a look at the invoice. We'll go to the Cookies by Kathy. We'll take a look at when the invoice was made. This is the customer. We did some gardening for $75. And we'll take a look at the transaction journal. So we can look here that we did landscaping services, weekly landscaping services for $75. When we created the invoice, we debited accounts receivable for $75 and we credited sales for $75. This is the first step in the workflow. Now to look at the second step in the workflow, we have to go to the payment. So let's go to invoices, all sales. Here we go. This is the payment. We'll take a look at the transaction journal. And we can see here that when we receive the payment, we credit this time accounts receivable. When we created the invoice, we debited accounts receivable. This time we credit accounts receivable and we debit undeposited funds. So basically the $75 went from accounts receivable to undeposited funds. To look at the next step in the workflow is we make the bank deposit. So let's go to the bank deposit and we'll go to reports, balance sheet, undeposited funds. And this is the deposit for $75. We'll again look at the transaction journal. This time, we're debiting the checking account for $75, means we are increasing the checking account, and we credit undeposited funds. So we're taking it out of undeposited funds and we're putting it into the checking account. So that's basically the workflow for undeposited funds in simple terms. This happens with multiple transactions at a time. When we do this with high volume transactions, it's a little bit different, but this is just to understand the workflow of how undeposited funds works. You can also see here bank deposit, and these are payments you received that have not yet been deposited into the bank account. Now if we go to invoices, and let's say you receive payment for Burnett Design for $27.50 for this invoice here. Let's say they give you a check, we'll do number 1. And make sure that it goes into undeposited funds. We can also make the mistake, some people make the mistakes of putting this into the checking account, straight into the checking account. Make sure you follow the workflow and put this into undeposited funds. Save and close. And then when we deposit these payments, you'll see here, Burnett Design, check number 1, $274.50. So we can deposit these 3 payments. Another mistake that can be made is, let's say you receive the payments, and when you go to the bank deposit here, you enter the deposit here. So let's say Cool Cars, and you put the account, design income, and the way they paid you, let's say they gave you a check, and you write the check number 2 and 167.52. If you do this, you'll still have this in undeposited funds, 1675.52, and you have deposited this into your bank account, meaning that you'll have this income here and also this one. So you'll have more income that you actually have. So this would be your overstated income. So make sure that if you're depositing a payment into the bank account, you click this one here and not through here. So let's say you're going to deposit all these 3. You click all 3 and you save and close. Oh, we'll have to click, let's say, check or cash. Check. 2. So this is the bank deposit that we just made. Let's say you receive an invoice, you receive payment for an invoice, Cookies by Kathy. You receive the payment. She gives you cash, goes into undeposited funds, save and close. We go to the balance sheet. For undeposited funds, we have 75 from Cookies by Kathy here with the payment. And now we go to bank deposit. When we deposit this payment, it goes into the checking account, the date, we save and close. And here we have the deposit of Cookies by Kathy. So to summarize, even though there are some potential mistakes that can be made if not used properly, undeposited funds can be a useful feature for managing customer payments. Overall, Undeposited funds can be particularly important for e-commerce bookkeeping because online businesses often receive high volume of small transactions from customers that need to be recorded accurately into the accounting system. This can help businesses accurately track and manage customer payments and ensure the integrity of their financial records. Please like this video, and if you have any questions, you can leave them in the comment section below and I'll be sure to get back to you. My name is Julio with QuickBooks Bookkeeping, and I help Shopify sellers ease the stress and complexities from e-commerce bookkeeping. I'll see you in the next video.